Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's excellent to have you here as always. And today we're actually doing a response of a response of a response on a video that wasn't even mine. So the other day I was watching a video from Grantham and it was on the PSA AK-74. And if you guys have been a fan of the channel for any length of time, you'll know that I have an affinity or a fascination or maybe even a fetish for Soviet weaponry. And because of that, whenever something comes out on a Soviet-style firearm, I'm interested in watching it. Well, let's just say, you can go watch the video yourself, that he did not give it very high marks. And in the comment section, I said something to the effect of, well, what do you expect from a rifle of this price point? And someone responded to me and said, well, why can't we expect more out of a rifle of this price point? Because they're not inexpensive firearms by any stretch of the imagination. And in the process of responding to that person, I wrote a book. And I'm like, you know what? This could be a video of itself because there's so many facets to this. And I've been able to distill it down to a few things that we can convey over video. And to do that, I've decided that today we are going to graph gun people. Now, I'm going to try to keep this as simplistic as possible because you can get nested really quick, and obviously there's going to be exceptions to everything. But on one side, we have the hardcore users, and I'm going to define this as purpose-driven, application-specific consumers. This could be a variety of things inside a whole bunch of different disciplines. A really good example of this would be my buddy Todd Huey down at Lone Star Boars, for instance. Dude shows up wearing like hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's absolutely ridiculous when you see all of the equipment that he uses, but it's a very specific thing that he is doing. And I suppose you could probably also sprinkle in the military professions in there as well, but really, I don't know that that's really applicable because that's all government driven anyway. So they're in a class of their own for this discussion. The other limit is the casual, and this person is less seriously invested and is more interested in other facets of their life than firearms. Nothing wrong with that. Not everybody has to work here. On the other axis of this diagram, we have what I'm going to call the give a crap index. And I define that along the lines of, are you going to take care of it? Do you care about the tiny details associated with it? And are you emotionally invested in that product? Get out of my laboratory! Now there's a couple reference points I want to plot on this diagram before we talk about how it actually applies to you and the industry as a whole. But before we do that, I have to pay the bills. And today's video is brought to you by Sonoran Desert Institute. Have you ever considered a career in the firearms industry? Or wanted to learn more about a particular discipline as it relates to guns? Perhaps you're under intense pressure from your family to go to college, but you realize that's a really bad investment because the only things that you're good at are guns and basket weaving. If any of that is you, then perhaps an educational foundation might be something you want to look into. Sonoran Desert Institute is a DEAC accredited online college focusing on programs and courses pertinent to firearms. So if you're into gun repair, ballistics, or learning about firearms, SDI might be something you want to look into. They even have funding plans and payment options available for anybody who doesn't have a pile of money laying around, like most of us. So if you're interested, you can catch up with them at sdi.edu. Special thanks to SDI for making today's video possible. Make sure you go over there and give those guys and gals some love. Back to the graph, the first thing I want to plot is the training line. Notice as you become more hardcore on the training, that your give a crap drops off fairly precipitously. And also, casual people don't train. Your concealed carry course does not count as training. Secondly, we have the poor line. Some people misunderstand the difference between being a poor and being poor. Being a poor is a mental state and is completely mutually exclusive from economic status. If we shade these confines in, we get the poor zone, which is actually a vortex like a singularity. Stay away from it. You need technology that doesn't yet exist to escape its event horizon. And while being less than wealthy is not a prerequisite for being a poor, adopting the poor mentality is a chronic condition that will eventually result in you living in your grandma's basement, subsisting on ramen and Cheetos with 5 rounds of 9mm to your name because it doesn't cost 14 cents a round anymore, and AKs should be cheaper than ARs. Went a little farther. I might be an escapee. You will also notice that the pores are in an antithetical region to those who spend a lot of time on the training circuit. Anyway, moving on, if we look at where most people live, it's in this region right here. As a result, there's a trifecta that goes into the manufacture of a firearm. A price point that suits most consumers, a functionality level that is going to meet the needs of most consumers at a moderate amount of maintenance. And that's going to land you smack dab right here. Well, most of what you watch on the internet in the gun space is performed by influencers, and we live here. So to explain this, I'm going to go ahead and plot myself, and I'm going to put myself right here. And to break that down, first and foremost, the training. I have had the privilege of spending a lot of time with a lot of people in a variety of training environments. And I'll be completely honest and say that a lot of that training was comped, which means that I didn't pay for it. And I realize that that's a very privileged situation to be in, and I'm very blessed to have found myself there, and I've not taken the opportunity for training lightly. I don't judge people who haven't spent $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 on education, which is about what I would say the equivalent amount of time that I have spent on various training courses would have amounted to if I had had to pay for all of it. I consider that to be fairly hardcore. I don't know about you, maybe you've got a different situation. If you were some kind of MARSOC operator or something like that and the government spent millions of dollars on you, then you're obviously, again, back to the beginning, you are an outlier. Product mentality, and my product mentality is fairly impacted by my time training. I consider myself a relatively data-driven utilitarian user, but look at the wall behind me. There's plenty of range toys right there, and I do enjoy the act of shooting. So I can't put myself over into the super hardcore space. That said, I do work here, and my job is really twofold. First and foremost, it is to conduct field testing and evaluation for industry samples for the purposes of continuous improvement of product lines. That was a mouthful. The second part of that is from that testing time is to inform you guys through the channel of what's going on and my time with those various products. Now, if we break that down, there are processes that support that. If you look at any video that I've published, you will see a disclaimer in the description box that says almost certainly that product was supplied to me by the manufacturer. And it is imperative that that system runs that way, and I'll explain why. When a product shows up for evaluation, I have no financial investment in that product whatsoever, and therefore I have no emotional investment in that product whatsoever. I don't give a shit about that thing. It's going to show up and I'm going to fulfill my contract, or at least attempt to fulfill my contract, which is usually about 1,000 rounds of testing time on that product before it goes back to the manufacturer. That means while it's here, I'm not going to clean it. I am not going to lube it. If it gets scratched up, dicked up, tossed out of falls off the tailgate of the vehicle, or my sling breaks and it dumps into the gravel, I don't care. That mentality absolutely does bleed over to the firearms that I use on a regular basis for general use. I have like 4 guns. For a really good example, the short barrel rifle that sits next to my desk is immaculate. I would use the bolt of that gun to scrape the bottom of a peanut butter jar before I used my finger if I didn't have a spoon. That's how clean it is. And the other 3 guns would be the 2 handguns that are in my carry rotation and my self-defense shotgun. Everything else is a screwdriver or a wrench. And if I maintained those guns at a level at which I maintained those 4 that I mentioned, then I would have no time to do anything. So I take an as-needed approach, and usually that means run it till it dies and then replace the broken part. So now that I've qualified where I sit on the spectrum and why I put myself there, definitely not the most hardcorest of users, and definitely not somebody who just absolutely doesn't give a crap about anything. There are people that are much stronger in each category than I am, but I've put myself kind of in a conservative position there. Now that I've done that, back to the graph. A manufacturer is not going to tell you that their product is mediocre. They're going to hype it up through marketing, and in doing so, they're going to shift the narrative about that product in this direction. So then those products are going to show up to my place, or Tim's place, or Don's place, or Mike's place, or Eric's place. I could go on. There are many. Sorry if I didn't mention you. The level of scrutiny that they're going to be subjected to at each of those places is going to be different, and different focuses for each place. And when you've got a product that performs at the level where it will perform for most consumers, and then has to be hyped to float above the mass of other competitive products, when you subject it to continuous scrutiny at that kind of level, eventually you're going to find issues. And that's part of what I do. To keep everything moving along the same lines, let's go to that AK-74. First disclaimer, I have a policy against making definitive statements about various products that I have not professionally tested. And this one's no different. All I can go off of is the data that has been presented. And I will stay within the confines of that data. Number two, I do have an affiliate profile with Palmetto State Armor. Any purchase using that link does provide a kickback to me, does support the channel. Disclaimers out of the way. Looking at the data, that firearm was not manufactured to withstand the scrutiny of a Grand Thumb. Somewhere in the year of 2020, and I forget where I posted it, I made a statement that given the current market, I would not touch an AK-74 that cost less than $2,500. And I stick by that statement. It's probably a little bit worse today, but we'll keep the same number. I forget what he said that these guns were going for, but it's below that figure. I have to explain, going full circle back to the point of why we can't get that kind of performance out of that price point of a firearm. The imports of yesteryear, of 20 years ago, no longer exist. That price point for those AKs were derived from the labor of a generation that was dirt poor. I want you to understand how much more wealthy even the poorest of us are here in the United States, that you can literally make that product overseas in an Eastern European country and move it across an ocean and sell it for a couple $100s off of somebody's hours of work on that product. If you do the same thing here in the United States, it has to cost 10 times the amount to manufacture that gun, because everybody is so much better off in the United States of America. There's a segment, a large segment, of the consumer base that believes that a manufacturer of a firearm cannot turn a profit on that enterprise. A firearms manufacturer can only make a minuscule margin on that gun because they have to provide your product at a rock bottom rate to be able to compete with all the other people that are putting out trash. Because they have to do that, they have to cut corners to be able to compete. And because of that, they have to shift from what could have been a hardcore firearm over to more of a mainstream use firearm because they can't charge you for it. And of course, this whole graph that we talked about this whole time floats on a sea of ammunition prices.